Yo guys, what is up? Max for Diablo 4 video, and today we're going over my companion Druid guide. Now, companions have been a bit of a meme for Druid, not a overly viable playstyle, still something you could get to work, but in Season 4 they're actually really good, and the reason they're so good right now is because of the changes to companions and how they scale in Season 4. Now, the companions that we have benefit from the stats on our gear, meaning if you get 40% crit chance on your gear, your companions get 40% crit chance. If you get 70% attack speed, your companions get 70% attack speed. And your companions also benefit from buffs that you can apply to yourself. And I set this build up last night at 10:30 p.m. and I walked into a pit 60 with not a single piece of gear masterworked and cleared it first try. I was actually kind of shocked at how good companions are. I put my gear to like 4 out of 12 masterworks and cleared a pit 80 first try. The companions right now are really strong. Now, I'm going to be honest, I've only played this build for about 3 hours, so I'm still min-maxing, I'm still testing some things, I'm still like working around, but I wanted to get this video out, one, to show you that companions are really good right now, and also kind of the strategies that I've implemented into my build to get them hitting as hard as possible. Right now we've got our companions. Each companion can hit right now on this build for about 20 mil when you click the wolves, so we can get about a peak DPS click of 60 mil a click with wolves. And our wolves are on max CDR pretty easily. They're on a 2.75 second cooldown. When they crit, if we have a pack leader, we can reset them. And this leads to not only great single target, but with some tricks for mobbing, we can actually get pretty good mobbing damage. In this video, we're going to talk about everything you need to know about the companions. And with that, guys, let's get right into it. Just for a quick overview, we are going to be scaling the wolves damage the most. Poison Creeper is pretty solid. It does poison damage, and you can make it deal more damage over time. The Ravens do some damage. You can scale their size and AoE, but I found it to be a little bit lackluster to try to scale all of these things with poison damage and wolf damage, and raven damage, and I really just wanted to hone in on making the wolves as best as possible. There's massive tempers for up to 325% increase with wolves that you can get, and really honing in on getting the wolves cooldown down to as low as possible to really highlight the wolves and their damage. And that is why we are just using one companion skill, and then everything else is meant to give us as much damage as possible with these wolves. All right, now let's get into our gear. Real quick, I just wanted to highlight that my attack speed bonus is terrible. Attack speed is really important on this build, and crit chance is also really important, and both of mine are terrible. I am currently just straight up out of Angel Breath right now, so I can't reroll a lot of my affixes. Once again, I put this together pretty quickly, but I just wanted to kind of give you the work in progress and show you that there's so much room for improvement. So, to start us out on your helmet, the real big thing that you're looking for is Ranks to Wolves. This gives us more base damage, and then on all of your utility tempers, we're really looking for wolf attack speed. The attack speed cap in this game is 100%. However, your wolves do not comply to your attack speed cap. They have their own attack speed, and so you can stack up to 100% attack speed on your character, and then the wolves attack speed bonus can go past that. So attack speed is one of the best ways to scale up their damage really well. I just have some willpower and max life, Ranks to Wolves, and then Wolf attack speed and fire resistance. We only need one resistance temper on this build to get res capped, which is pretty nice. Now, we're going to be using the Aspect of Might because we will be basic attacking with Maul. This is going to proc our Bestial Rampage, which is going to give us a damage multiplier for our skills, and also we're going to get the attack speed from being in the werewolf form, and we get flat damage reduction whenever we basic attack with Maul, which is really easy to do. As well, it's going to give us building up of our shapeshifting bonuses more, so you can just like shred Maul, shred Maul, shred Maul, shred Maul, to constantly build up all of your shapeshift bonuses. Next up on your chest piece, I went for armor cap here. I'm just above armor cap. Armor cap is 9,230 with an armor roll, and a percentage armor roll is all we need. We don't need to grab armor in our Paragon board or anything, and we don't need to use a Disobedience or Juggernaut, so that's fantastic. And then I'm using the Vigorous aspect, which gives me more DR while I'm shapeshifted into a werewolf. You could also use the aspect that gives you more DR with Maul. However, it's like a very low floor, as in like it starts out at like 4% damage reduction, versus this is just immediately at 15%. So I have been using this just because I feel it's a little bit more consistent, but the Maul aspect is pretty good too. And then we're going for some more Wolf attack speed on our chest piece. Next up on your gloves, crit chance, attack speed, and max life, or crit chance, attack speed, willpower would be best in slot, and then Wolf attack speed, Wolf damage. And then we're going to be using the aspect of the Wild Rage, which our companions benefit from Bestial Rampage. This wording was changed. They now get double the bonus. This, to my knowledge, was not a actual buff to this. It was just worded to reflect how companions actually work now. So any buff that applies to you applies to your companions. So if we go to our skill tree and I am in a werebear form for 2 seconds, I get a 50% damage increase. This applies to my companions, right? Because now my companions are benefiting from the stats on me, but with the Bestial Rampage, now they're also going to be getting the buffs themselves. So for example, if I get 30% attack speed, they get 30% attack speed, and then they also get another 30% attack speed from Bestial Rampage. So it is applying twice, but it's not like a buff, it's just how it should be working, with them benefiting from our buffs kind of type deal. Next up, Storm Companions Pants. These make the wolves deal lightning damage in an AoE when you press their active ability. It helps us scale for like non-fizz damage, which we can do some pretty cool things with. And it also is going to give us companion movement speed, which is really valuable on this build, and more flat damage to wolves with plus ranks to wolves, which is really good because we're going to be scaling a lot of additive damage on this build. Next up, Wild Heart Hunger. I'm not like 100% on these boots. I still want to mess around a little bit, but they're pretty fantastic for giving us a big old damage bonus when we're constantly shapeshifting, which we will be doing a lot, and they give us movement speed and DR, all great things that we want on the build. Next up on your weapon, I went with an axe with willpower, max life. I would preferably get crit damage here. Willpower, max life, crit damage just didn't happen, but I've got a damage roll there. And then the big thing you're looking for is +2 wolves damage. I'm not entirely sure what the best second temper would be. Right now I've got shred crit chance on. My logic for that is there's not really many other things that are super important. There's like the temper that you have a lucky hit chance to deal a flat elemental amount of damage. However, your companions can't actually lucky hit, so they can't proc that. And also, with Pack Leader, if we give Shred more crit chance, then we get to reset our companions more, even though they're already on a low cooldown. If we're resetting them constantly, we can just keep clicking the button over and over and over again. So that is pretty nice. And then you're going to be using the aspect of the alpha. Now, the aspect of the alpha was also changed this season. So now it properly actually gives the wolves the werewolf tag. I don't know why that's not displaying right now. Let me try putting that on. There it is. So looks like something weird might be happening there. But now your companion actually gets updated to give the werewolf tag on it, which is fantastic, because before they would only scale with companion damage increases, and now in our Paragon board, we can grab things that actually give you werewolf damage stuff, and they will actually scale with that as well, which is fantastic. For your amulet, you're going to want crit chance, attack speed, and then ranks 2 in Venom. I have none of those things, which is a bit of a bummer. But the reason that I think Envenom is better, and I need to do more testing on this, admittedly, but the way that I'm understanding Call of the Wild is it's for my companion skills, meaning the active press of the companions. Like if I press Ravens, if I press Poison Creeper, if I press Wolves, they deal more damage. This is only available for the active press. However, Envenom is a damage multiplier for them, for both their passive basic attacks and also their activation. And so Envenom would be a buff that scales up to 60% if we get it on our amulet, and it would be up all the time versus Call of the Wild only being available on the active press. I do need to do more testing of that. If Call of the Wild works for both the passive and the active, then this is best in slot. But if not, Envenom is surely better. And we're going to be using the Stampede aspect for companion skills, which once again, I believe that is active press, deal bonus damage. And then Wolves cooldown, Wolves damage on our necklace. Next up, we're using 2 rings. Now, if you wanted more survivability, you could pop a Hunter Zenith on here for more debilitating roar spam. I found that I was having pretty good survivability with 55,000 life and some defensive skills. So I'm using 2 just legendary rings, max life, crit chance, and ideally attack speed. I just have a roll of poison resist that I haven't been able to roll off quite yet. But max life, crit chance, attack speed is going to be your god roll ring. And then Wolves cooldown, Wolf damage is going to help us get to the cooldown cap of Wolves. I am rocking Night Howlers with Blood Howl to give the companions crit chance, which once again I need more of, so this is huge. I need to do more testing on this as well, but it sounds like, if I'm understanding this correctly, if Blood Howl gives me 10% crit chance and it also affects my nearby allies, and my allies would benefit from my crit chance and they are getting affected, then this should technically be 20% crit chance for the Wolves rather than just 10% for me, 10% for them, because that 10% should apply to them as well. So this is a huge crit chance increase, which is massive for us. And then my next ring, I've just got Wolves cooldown, Wolves damage, attack speed, max life, and I'm trying to reroll that willpower to even more crit chance. And then we're using Aspect of the Insatiated. After killing an enemy with Shred, you gain 20 spirit. This is another way to gain spirit on the build. And also our werewolf skills, which now does apply to our actual wolves with our werewolf skills, now deal increased damage when cast above 50 spirit, which is pretty easy because really the only thing that's using spirit on this build is Shred, and we're not shredding all that much. The reason it's so important to get so much wolf damage on this build is because we're going to be using elixirs of holy bolts. Now this is, I think, intentional, so just be aware that this is possibly going to get fixed, but if we proc holy bolts, we don't get a whole lot of damage from them. However, if our wolves kill an enemy, that enemy explodes in these holy bolts, and those holy bolts, because they're getting triggered by a companion, for some reason are getting our companion damage increases. So if we have 1,500% increased wolf damage and our wolves kill an enemy and they proc holy bolts, those holy bolts will then get that damage increase on them. This is leading to the holy bolts hitting for millions of damage, and it allows us to like super speed up the mob clear. The companions have always been good at single target, even before they got buffed. They're fantastic at single target now, but the holy bolts potion allows them to like really scale up their AoE damage, which is pretty nuts. It's something you can use if you want to. I definitely recommend it, and it helps this build clear so much higher than I think it normally would be able to. For our Spirit Boons, we're using Wariness, reduce damage from elites, Iron Feather for more max life, Avian Wrath for a crit damage multiplier. Pack Leader is the real most important one. Pack Leader allows us to reset our companion skills, which once again is our wolves, but our wolves can crit and they have a 54% lucky hit chance, so your wolves can reset themselves, and then you can click again and they can reset themselves. This can lead to like big chains of huge burst damage, so Pack Leader is awesome. And then Masochistic is going to give our crit skills a chance to give us tons of healing, or our shapeshifting skills. Shred is a shapeshifting skill, Maul is a shapeshifting skill, and Lacerate is a shapeshifting skill. All of these, when they lucky hit crit, can give us tons of healing back, which is really nice. For our skills, we're using Maul with the Maul extended range. The only reason we use the extended range on Maul is because if you hit an enemy with Maul, you fortify, so the more enemies we hit, the more fortify we get. Then we're using Shred. Shred is kind of a mobility skill, but really the big use of Shred, we get some lucky hits, we get some healing from it, but the big use of it in this build is a way to spend Spirit. If we spend Spirit with Shred, we proc Ancestral Guidance, which is a 30% damage multiplier for our werewolves. So that's kind of why we're incorporating Shred into the build. We get Digiturret Gate and Iron Fur, some movement speed, survivability, crit chance. Then we're using full Vigilance for damage reduction, Debilitating Roar to cast to give us healing, fortify. I use Debilitating Roar against packs of like elites. We're not spamming this. We're just kind of using it wisely when we need to. Blood Howl, I'm currently using it for the Spirit. I don't have to basic attack as much, and also we get a damage multiplier if we cast our skills above a certain spirit threshold, so that actually feels pretty good. If I can get some other ways to get spirit, we could go preserving for more attack speed, but right now I'm just generating spirit for myself, so I can always make sure we're spending Shred to always keep up Ancestral Guidance. Then Wolves, obviously, when you critically strike, your Wolves gain attack speed. This is an even more important reason for us to get our crit chance up. Call of the Wild and Nature's Reach, we deal increased damage to distant enemies. You're going to be casting your Wolves at enemies that are not next to you. Envenom for damage multiplier, and our werewolf skills will now poison, so anytime that these guys crit, they poison enemies, which is super important. And then lastly, I'm using Lacerate. Lacerate is not something that I was planning on using in this build, I'm going to be super honest. I was originally rocking Petrify, But if we go Petrify, we don't have a source of like Unstoppable. Petrify makes us immune, which is kind of the same thing as Unstop. You can use it while you're CC'd. And you're immune for like a bit of time, which is actually really nice for the boss fights. The boss fights in the pit, they're scary. There's kind of telegraphed attacks that sometimes you are not able to get out of the way of. And so in boss fights, I kind of use Lacerate the same way a Sork would use Flame Shield. I click it if I think my life is in danger, and then I get complete immunity to any damage, and I get a damage multiplier, and it heals. So we click it, we heal, we get damage multiplier. It's pretty good, and we get it on a really low cooldown once I show you my Paragon board. And then quick shift, heightened senses, natural fortitude. All of these things are just keeping us fortified, healthy, and giving us damage. And then with Bestial Rampage, you can find the full Paragon board on Max Roll. There are some changes that I've made to it here for this build. I do need to update the Max Roll article. Once again, I messed around and started trying all of this stuff last night, but I'm going to walk you through all of the things you need to know. So first board, we're going to be putting Keeper. You and your companions deal 10% increased non-physical damage. Remember, with the Storm Companion Pants, they now deal lightning damage, aka non-phys. So this buffs up their damage ability by 10%, which is huge. We're using Fang and Claw, while in Werewolf or Werebear form, close enemies take increased damage from you. This should also help us apply it to our companions, and then we get more damage to poison enemies and damage reduction from poison enemies. Remember that the wolves, whenever they crit, will poison enemies with Toxic Claws, which allows us to go grab Overturn, damage to poison enemies, damage to poisoned enemies, and also heightened malice. For whenever we're hitting a lot of enemies in an area, we're going to be getting heightened malice, which is a damage multiplier for us and our companions. The damage multipliers that apply to us also apply to our companions, so that's pretty great. Your third board, you're really coming over to Inner Beast. Inner Beast is mainly used for the ultimate cooldown by 5 seconds. This is just lopping off 5 seconds off of our ultimate cooldown whenever it procs, which is really, really nice. And it allows us to keep up Lacerate more often than not. Once again, Lacerate is currently the only way to get Unstoppable on this build. So Lacerate cooldown is pretty nice, and it lets us shred a little bit more. We're grabbing Havoc for more crit damage. We're going to be putting Wilds in on a 39 out of 25 board for a whole lot more companion damage. We're going to grab Ancestral Guidance for the damage multiplier from Ancestral Guidance. Before you go down, we're going to come over to Constricting Tendrils. We want to make sure that we get the Courage node on early enough that we can fully max this out to get 8% more max life, all of these max life nodes. And then we're going to put Spirit here for a crit damage multiplier and more crit damage increase. And then we're going to coming over here to put the Werewolf glyph. We get more damage while in werewolf form, and you gain damage reduction while in werewolf form. This one is kind of the glyph that I'm like a little bit teetering around with. I'm trying to toy with either using Werewolf or Undaunted. Undaunted is also pretty good, and we can easily hit Undaunted if we put some intelligence there and there. We could fit Undaunted, which gives us more damage while fortified and more damage reduction while fortified. Obviously, we're not constantly in werewolf form, and we're not constantly in werebear form, so I think that could be a happy medium. But when I cleared my tier 80, that is what I was wearing. I was wearing a werewolf glyph node. Let me unsocket that and grab that. There it gives us 40 werewolf. And then we're coming down to the survival instincts board. This we're mainly just picking up Territorial, which gives us more damage to close and damage reduction from close enemies. Guys, that is gonna do it. Guys, that is gonna do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. Once again, I'll be live on twitch.tv/Moxie, testing this build out further and seeing how far we can push it. I obviously don't expect this to be like the top Druid build, but I know a lot of people were interested in the companion playstyle, so I wanted to make a guide on it and see how viable it could be, and turns out they're pretty freaking strong. So I hope you guys enjoyed the build video, and I will catch y'all in the next one. Take care. Peace.